What's up, Revo fans? We're out here today comparing the 3 SL e-bikes that we've got sitting under the house at the moment. We've done a few comparison videos before, but never compared SL to SL. So we thought, why not?
Exactly. So which of these bikes is going to be maybe perfect for you watching this at home? Hopefully in this video, we're going to let you find out. Now, of course, the SL stands for super light, and it's one of the most exciting and rapidly emerging categories of e-bike. Now, obviously, you think of e-bike, you think of just heaps and heaps of power, heaps of weight that kind of goes along with that. Whereas SLs is it's the best of both worlds between a regular bike, because obviously with a lower weight, you've got agility and handling of a regular bike. Absolutely. But yet you've still got the motor there, so it's got just a bit of support. Not a crazy amount of power that a lot of people don't actually use, but you know, there's still plenty of push to get you up the hill and get you riding a lot more trail in the same amount of time as on a regular bike. So look, let's start it off. As you said, we've got 3 carbon e-bikes, all of them are carbon. Let's start it off with the Levo SL. This is the 2nd generation. This is probably the 1st generation of this bike. Pretty much put SLs on the map by and large, is it fair to say?
Absolutely, yeah. So the father of this bike, the original Levo SL, was the first of its kind, absolutely. Specialized definitely sort of pioneered this category within themselves. And to be honest, I feel like this bike was not something that a lot of people would have considered buying when it was initially released. I think that would probably be fair to say. They said, well, what's the point? You know, it hasn't got as much power, it hasn't got as much battery. I might as well just ride a normal bike. But I think that that's one thing that definitely the consumers have started to realize now that every brand basically is doing it. And then Specialized have come out with this 2nd version. They've really taken everything that sort of people maybe didn't like or criticize and that type of thing of the original version and just hit the nail on the head. They hit every single nail on the head, and this is a beautiful bike.
Mate, give us a run through, because this version is quite a lot different to the 1st generation Levo. Obviously, it's got a huge amount of geometry adjustment, but it's also got a power increase as well.
That's right. So the new SL 1.2 version of their Specialized motor is packing 50 Newton meters of power. So I believe that's 15 Newton meters over the old version. And the battery spec in the bike is 320 watt hours. So Specialized also offer their battery pack that sits inside the bottle cage, which is a battery extender. But yeah, out of the box, 320 watt hours, 50 Newton meters of power.
Wicked. And how much travel does this thing have?
So the SL's got 160 millimeter travel fork and 150 millimeters out the rear. Care of their redesigned linkage system, so yeah.
And we're talking a mullet as well, so 27.5 rear, 2.9 front. Now, let's step across and have a chat about the Jam2 SL. This bike is absolute mind-bending. We've just got our hands on this guy. But give us first off a run through wheel size, motor, battery, all that sort of stuff. So
aside from its striking looks, this is really one of the most beautiful looking and sleek and incognito, if you will, SL e-bikes. This has got a very exciting power system. So it's got the vs'Jam2 Ride 60 unit, so 60 Newton meters, of power, packed with a 430 watt hour battery. So substantially more power, substantially more battery capacity than the Levo, but it's also different riding characteristics, a little bit punchier power, maybe the Specialized a little bit more linear in its uptake on the power, but either way, you're going to be super stoked with that vs'Jam2 system.
Wicked. Run us through travel. Obviously a 2.9 exclusive on the Jam2 SL. How much travel does this bike have?
So this has the same as the Levo SL. So 164, 150 out the rear. Similar linkage system to the Specialized. Obviously it's got some different kinematics and that type of thing. It's also got some geometry adjust, not as much as the Specialized, but it's a bit more simpler, a bit more easier to wrap your head around, and yeah.
Sort of a perfect balance then. So far these bikes are pretty similar. Obviously the Focus got quite a lot more power and a fair bit larger battery. Mate, let's shift our attention across the Shuttle SL. This is the latest version, or latest e-bike from Pivot out of USA. Very impressive bike, and definitely a very popular bike out there on the trails. We have seen a lot of these getting around Australia already. Give us an overview of what you're getting with the Shuttle SL.
So the Shuttle SL is a step down as far as travel. So we're packing a 150 fork and 130 millimeters of travel out the rear. This is taken care of by Pivot's DW link, the Dave Weigel link. If you've been in the industry or been a fan of mountain biking for a while, you'll definitely know that name. Super supple suspension platform. The Pivot Shuttle SL is also packing the same drive system as the Focus. So we've got the Fazua Ride 60 motor, exactly the same. 60 Newton meters of power, 430 watt hour battery, the identical system, sort of handlebar controls, all that type of stuff.
Interesting. Now let's just talk quickly. Obviously 3 very different bikes, 3 very different brands, 3 different approaches to developing, designing their bikes. Weight-wise, out of the 3, the Pivot in its lightest spec, all complete, is coming just 16.5 kilos, just a touch over 16.5 kilos. Next up is the Levo SL, which is in its lightest version, is 17.4 kilos, and the Jam is right there on 17.5 kilos. So not a lot of difference between them, all very, very light. Now, dollars wise, this is where it starts. All of these bikes are available in multiple spec levels here in Australia. The Focus Jam is actually the cheapest bike, or the most affordable. Price point, ticket price on that starts at $11,500 bucks. The Levo starts at just under 12, and this guy you're looking close to 15 grand in the cheapest spec, or most affordable spec. So quite a lot of variance there, especially the Pivot. It's quite the gourmet package, the Pivot. They're definitely known for being a dentist's bike for a reason. But now let's go ahead and talk about how each of these bikes perform, and kind of the personality of each bike, what sort of rider is going to get the most out of this thing, and which one is going to be best for you guys watching this at home.
Absolutely. So we'll start with the Pivot. Being a shorter travel bike, this is obviously sort of aimed at more of a trail bike, which it does very, very well. So we've got a high and a low adjustability within the suspension, so high and a low bottom bracket height. Which is going to tailor the bike slightly towards you and more around like your local trails, whether you would like the bike to be a little bit steeper, a little bit slacker. But basically, this is an all-round trail bike. So with the larger battery as well, 430 watt hour battery, you could happily ride this thing for hours and hours on end. It is capable of riding obviously rough trails. Like, to be honest, I've probably ridden this bike on some trails that are a little bit over its head, and it performed very, very well. The DW link is a super predictable, super supple, like I said, link off the top. Few tokens in there, ramp that suspension up, and you will be able to ride the rougher trails, but it really does just trail bike all day long.
Perfect. And that actually, just before we get onto the Focus, you raise a really good point there, and that is the smaller batteries with an e-bike and how long you're getting out of them. And one thing I think a lot of people that probably haven't ridden SLs would be mistaken on thinking is that because they've got smaller batteries, it's going to drain really fast. So if you, for instance, if you had a 320 watt hour battery in a regular e-bike, so quite a heavy bike, full power, you're probably maybe only going to get an hour out of it. But the thing about the Levo and the Focus and the Pivot and all SLs is that because their mass is so much smaller, and they don't deliver as much power, the actual life, the amount of juice that battery lasts much longer, probably double that of a regular e-bike in fact. So they're actually a lot more efficient, which draws a lot less power, and so you're getting a lot more trail time between rides. Now, moving straight across now to the Jam2 SL. Mate, tell us a bit about the personality of this bike. We know you've only had this one a couple of weeks. You spent a lot longer on both these bikes, but already what can you tell us straight off the bat?
The Focus Jam SL it's a do-it-all bike. So this 160 fork, 150 rear travel trail bikes, I don't like to call these trail bikes. I call them mini enduro bikes, because obviously we've got quite aggressive geometry as we start to sort of get into those travel lengths. So I like to sort of refer to them as mini enduro bikes rather than trail bikes. So with the 29 front and rear wheel package exclusively on this bike, it is probably one of the better descending SL bikes I've ridden. Like, it is super predictable. It holds the line very, very well. In part two, I think Focus have done a really good thing in speccing this with the Fox 36 instead of maybe a 38, because it gives a little bit more of a supple feel to the front end. Obviously full carbon construction. It can potentially be like a little bit stiff in some sort of aspects, but obviously they've gone full carbon to save that weight. But they've also gone, obviously with the 36, they've gone with a beautiful DT Swiss 1700 wheel set on there. So a nice alloy wheel set, a little bit of compliance there, good trail feel. So yeah, the Focus is just really good all-rounder.
Awesome. Now, Blake, we've seen you riding the Levo SL for quite a few months now, and I've seen you do some mind-bending stuff out in the trails. This thing looks like a lot of fun, and clearly it's well up for hitting big gaps.
Yeah.
Mate, tell us about the personality of this bike. As we said, Specialized, pretty much the pioneers of SL. You'd expect them to have it pretty dull by now. How does this bike handle?
So when I first got the SL, we were lucky enough to have this thing before it got released. I really like the geometry adjustment package that Specialized have spec'd this bike with. We've seen it on bikes before, it's not a new thing, but the previous model SL didn't have anything like this. And I just couldn't help myself but to throw it in the slackest, lowest option. And then being a mullet bike as well, which suits me very well, this bike is super aggressive in this current sort of geometry setting. And yeah, like you said, like I've got no qualms hitting the biggest gaps that I can sort of think of, and big drops, all that kind of thing, and just rip, bust, tear through any trail. It's definitely the most aggressive SL bike that I've ridden, and you know, more aggressive than the others, partially due to that sort of 650B rear wheel. There's just no holding this thing back on the trails, that's for sure.
Mate, this is quite the party bike indeed. So there you have it. These are 3 of the latest SL bikes on the market, 3 that we've been spending quite a bit of time on. If you want to go for a more in-depth review on any of these bikes, scroll through our channel because we've got some pretty in-depth wrap-ups on each of these guys. We're going to be doing a lot more, particularly on the Focus in time to come. Yeah, which bike is going to be best for you? Which bike we'd like to know more about? Drop a comment below. We keep an eye on that and often reply to those things. But yeah, for now, keep an eye on our channel for plenty more e-bike coverage to come.